you very much, Professor Filippini. Hello, everybody. Really honored to be here. Without further ado, my name is Edoardo, and today we'll talk about multimedia forensics and the challenges it is facing in the multimodality data era. First of all, what is multimedia forensics? Well, modern communication is heavily based on multimedia opposite exchange. So now we exchange through social media or messaging apps hundreds of thousands of pictures, videos, and audio clips. And together with this exchange, we also have tools to easily modify these objects. So think about the filters we have on Instagram or TikTok. Now, while some of these instruments are harmless, others are way scarier. For instance, did you know that back in the 2000 I used to play in a rock band called Rush? Or that just some weeks ago I scored the winning goal in the Inter Milan football derby? Well, of course, this is not true because I decided to take a PhD instead of having fun, but I hope these examples that are called in the field deepfakes convinced you that we cannot trust everything that we see. So we need instruments to verify the authenticity of multimedia content, and that is where multimedia forensics comes into play. So what is the basic idea behind multimedia forensics? Every multimedia object, like a digital picture, has a life cycle composed of many stages. And each one of these stages involves some kind of nonlinear processing operations that in turn leave traces of forensic footprints behind. So we can look for these forensic footprints using linear processing techniques, and then we can reconstruct the overall object history so that we can understand, for instance, which phone took this picture or if this picture is manipulated. So what are the challenges that multimedia forensics facing? So multimedia forensics is heavily influenced by the way we exchange data. So right now, the main challenges are posed by big data, so by those data sets that are too big to be processed by traditional paradigms. We can describe big data in many ways. The standard model is Daglanis 3Vs, and today we would like to talk about two of these characteristics that are variety and velocity. In terms of variety, now multimedia forensics has to analyze way more modalities of data with respect to standard images or videos. For instance, satellite images that are inherently multimodal or biomedical images. And believe it or not, this kind of data is a target for malicious manipulation. So does everybody remember Malaysian flight number 17? This was an air flight that was shot down in the Donetsk area by Russian rebels back in 2014. And some months after the fact, a manipulated picture, so a Photoshop picture, that is the one you see in the slide, was diffused by Russian national television to accuse the Ukrainian Air Force. Not only we exchange data at a very high speed, but also new threats emerge constantly, like for instance, media that are generated by deep learning tools, what we call usually deepfakes. And we can generate deepfakes of images, videos, but also, for instance, of satellite images. So in this slide, this example here is a deepfake satellite image. So what tools do we have to tackle these challenges? Well, it turns out that deep learning is very helpful. So in my thesis, we developed deep learning detectors that generalize over different data modalities and tasks. And today we'll talk about two of them, which is spicy localization for satellite images and deepfake video detection. So first of all, just a quick slide to talk about satellite images because it's a very beautiful word, but it's also really complex. First of all, satellite images are inherently multimodal, as we were saying, because satellites are equipped with various sensors. We can have passive sensors, so instruments that record the sunlight that is reflected by the Earth's surface, and this generates, for instance, RGB images or panchromatic images, or active sensors. So instruments that have their own source of energy, so they emit and record the reflected waves. For instance, radar instruments generate what we call synthetic aperture radar images. Now, this kind of data is really complex, has a very complex life cycle, so many forensic footprints that we know for digital pictures are not really suitable for the analysis, and in this case, deep learning can really help. How? Well, in many different ways. For instance, we can use deep learning, like convolutional neural networks, to extract some generic forensic information, like we want to know which satellite took this picture. And then we can use this information also for other tasks, like image manipulation localization. So in my thesis, we tackle one specific task, which is copy-paste attack localization, and a copy-paste is basically a picture that is a composition of two different images coming from two different satellites. And we want to understand which pixel have been manipulated in this kind of attack. So how can we use convolutional networks? Well, first we can use, for instance, convolutional networks to we train convolutional networks to predict the satellite that generated a specific panchromatic image. And then, at test time, we take a panchromatic image, we divide it into different more rectangles that we call patches. We process each of these patches with convolutional neural networks, and we get from each of these patches some information that is related to the satellite that has generated. So we then look at the inconsistency of this information, and in this way we can localize manipulated pixel regions as pixel regions that come from a satellite that is different from the rest of the picture. Now, moving to actively generated images, this kind of data poses additional challenges, and in my thesis we worked a lot on synthetic aperture radar images. They pose additional challenges because they are not like digital pictures at all. In this case, we're talking about radar waves. So how can we verify if it's been manipulated? And in this case study, we are considering splicing, which is the more specific, more technical term for the general Photoshop pictures. So we have basically a target sample, which is down there. We want to modify some pixels that are indicated here in white in this target pixel mask. And to do that, we can either take some pixel from the source sample or apply some kind of editing like Gaussian noise or blurring, depending really on the type of manipulation we want to perform. In this case, what we have done was to exploit a very well-known concept in the forensic community, which is called the high-frequency residual. So the high-frequency residual is nothing but a version of the image where all the low-frequency content has been filtered out. So here we have an example. On the left, a picture. On the right, it's HFR, the high-frequency residual, which is this kind of noisy-like image that, however, is really useful because it exposes directly at the naked eye the manipulation traces. So we can see here that something shady is going on, and that is because the girl here on the right has been spliced, has been photoshopped in the picture. So our goal here is, can we obtain a similar representation for SAR data? It turns out that we can if we exploit again the power of convolutional neural networks. So we developed a very simple pipeline with two blocks. The first one is a fingerprint extractor, so a convolutional neural network that turns SAR images into this noisy-like signal where editing traces are directly exposed. So for instance here, we have modified this image here on the top left corner, and we can see in this fingerprint already that something is going on here. So using convolutional neural network, we can translate this concept also for synthetic aperture radar. And then we can further refine this fingerprint using this other module here to generate these forgery masks where each white pixel is indicated as a manipulation. Okay, last topic, deepfakes. So we already explained what deepfakes are. Just a quick slide to explain what we mean with deepfake videos. In general, specifically here, we refer to videos where the identity of the speaker has been changed through face swapping techniques. So here we have a very famous example from a YouTube channel. It's called Control-Shift-Face, changing the face of every actor in a movie with Sylvester Stallone. Or this is a clip from national TV show Striscia la Notizia with subject former Prime Minister Matteo Renzi. So why deep learning can be useful here? Because face manipulation traces are really hard to model using standard signal processing. In this way, we can use deep learning to directly learn from data the forensic features that we need to determine fake or not. So a very simple setup in this case would be we take a video that we can also consider as a sequence of still pictures or frames, and then we extract the faces of all the subjects inside this frame. And we feed those faces to a single natural architecture, in our studies was mentioned before, that just tell us the likelihood of each face being a deep fake or not. One immediate drawback that we can see here is that we are not extracting any specific present information. So as found to say this video is a deep fake. So can we fix that? Can we get what we call in the field some kind of interoperability? In our work, we used a simple attention mechanism. So an attention mechanism is an instrument that is used in deep learning to allow convolutional neural networks or neural networks in general to focus on specific part of the input. This is done basically generating a sort of heat map with values between 0 and 1, where basically the network learns to cancel out some of the elements of the input. This is really helpful because in our case, we can also take this attention map and we can project it back on the input to see which elements the network judged more informative for showing these videos. So we have done this for a bunch of deepfake videos, and we have some example here on the right. Just a quick note, the black pixels are basically pixels that the network is not considering. So what is cool here about these videos is that the network basically focuses on those facial features like the eyes, the nose, or the mouth, where the literature historically has found many of the artifacts that are left by deepfake generation methods. So this way we have also a mechanism to check, to control the network up the right artifacts and it is not biased by some elements in the dataset or other elements in the input. So in conclusion, I hope that today I convinced you that deep learning can be really helpful for multimedia forensics, especially in the challenges posed by big data. In terms of variety, we have seen that we can still extract general forensic information like the accuracy residual or the learning without losing performances. And in terms of velocity, that we can quickly adapt deep learning to new manipulation techniques while still maintaining a certain degree of integrity. And with this slide and the presentation, I leave the floor to the other amazing presentation of today from the Speaker Award. If you want to stay in touch, my LinkedIn page, and if you're interested in multimedia, the page from my laboratory, Emergency Processing Lab. Thank you very much.